Good morning. I am met this morning by Richard Vaughan in sunny Australia. It looks very sunny, but I suspect that's a Skype theme we're on now, Richard.
Definitely is. It's 8 p.m. and very
Is
dark,
it?
but it's very hot. Not too
We've
bad.
actually got sunshine here. Look, sunshine in Scotland. When do you ever get
Mm-hmm.
sunshine in Scotland? Sunshine and cold. What's the
Record it.
temperature like?
Record it. 30,
Is it?
30, 25, 30. Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of autumn, I guess.
Is it in Scotland? They've just the wife was telling me this morning on the news in London it's going to be down up to 24 degrees in the UK next week, and I think Scotland gets to 13 or something. And at the moment it's about like 5, I reckon. Do you miss it
Yeah,
from
I hear.
having been in the UK? Do you miss it? The cold?
I don't mind the fresh weather. It's the rain. I'm from
Oh
Wales,
yeah,
so it's the constant
yeah.
rain. So it can be a bit much. And I was 4 years in Dublin where it rained not quite as much, but
A lot.
similar. So I needed a sunnier climate, should we say.
So when was that? When did you go there?
So I was in Dublin 2011, 15, and then came to Brisbane towards the end of 15, I think. So then I've kind of been stuck here since, literally, with COVID now as
So
well.
is that
So
6 years you've been there
yeah.
then? You've been living there. And why did you go to Brisbane?
So it's sort of role,
Was it?
really. Did a really good job in Ireland in terms of didn't really want to leave it, but it was just another opportunity to kind of work with a different sport in a bigger sort of system and get some
Yeah,
sun,
the
really.
climate's
So
got to play a massive part, isn't it? You see the TV programs nowadays, and it's all these, people moving to Australia and people doing the balancing act of how much can I get for an earning, and how much is the house going
mm,
to cost, and how much is my council tax going to cost, and what's my wife going to do, and what the school's like, and all
mm.
of that stuff, isn't it? Did you go through all of that
Yeah,
process in your head?
no, not
Didn't you?
really. It was very fast moving, and when I took the job, we found out we were getting twins as
Wow.
well. So the first 6 months, I was kind of back and forth, and we brought the twins over when they were 2 or 3 months old. So it was very whirlwind, and the work was busy, but it was really
So did
enjoyable,
you go
busy.
over on your own,
Um,
Richard, originally?
yeah, yeah. So my wife really appreciated me leaving her on her own though.
What?
No.
She
But no,
So
no,
you're like, see
she did
ya,
well. And
yep, see ya.
no, we had an arrangement with the organization, so they allowed me to basically be a month there, a month off, and I was back in the UK for 3 or 4 months over that period, shall we
Yeah, yeah.
say? And then yeah, it worked, but it was busy, so didn't have a chance for all those considerations that people should
Yeah.
do. And no, look, the weather's
Where did
nice.
the
It's
job come from?
the best
Can I
time.
ask where did the job come from? How did you know about it? How did you find out about it and stuff? And sorry,
Yeah,
what was
so
the job? You better tell everybody else what the job is. I think I know.
yeah, so it was CEO of Squash
Wow.
Australia, and I did some agency work in Qatar for Aspire, which is Qatar Olympic Committee's main kind of sporting
Right.
institute. So I put together their badminton
Right.
program, and then the same agency were looking for a CEO for squash,
In
and
Australia.
squash
In
were
Australia.
yeah in Australia. So they were looking for a bit of transformation. The numbers had declined, they lost funding, and I done a similar piece of work in Ireland, which they were aware of. So they wanted me to come in for 3 years prior to the Commonwealth Games on the Gold Coast and do a very specific job. So the goal was come in, do that, and then go back after the Commonwealth Games in 18. And then kind of got stuck a little bit after that,
Wow.
really.
And it's what an I can imagine you being in Ireland and it raining and all the rest of it and cold, and then you get a call from somebody that says, how do you fancy going to Australia? And you go, what?
Yeah, exactly. And when you're playing badminton, you get to travel everywhere.
Yes.
So I've been to Brisbane, Sydney quite
Had
a
you?
quite a few times. Mostly Sydney Olympics and holding camps and a few events afterwards. And it's a very nice place, climate, and it's very British in terms of culture as well. So it's apart from the distance, it's
Yeah.
it's yeah a no-brainer for anybody that gets the
And
opportunity,
do
really.
you have family there or something as well, or is it just
No, no. We have a few friends that are out here, but yeah, no, we don't have family, and that's been really tough with the twins,
Definitely.
obviously. But we've both been really busy with work, and yeah, we kind of managed to get
And
through things,
did
and
your wife come over? Was she working in Wales, or did she come over? Did she find a job in Brisbane with you? Is that what happened, or what?
yeah, yeah. So obviously she was off for 2 years probably with the
Yeah,
kids. So we agreed it was good for her to have the time with them at that age. So there was no
that's
pressure
great.
as such. And then yeah, she was able to find a job there. So yeah, look, there's complications kind of along the way, and you do miss family, and
Yeah,
we kind of forfeited some money, I guess, with her leaving a role back home in terms of benefit for
yeah.
children and different things. But yeah, overall, it's
It's
worked out quite
lifestyle,
good
isn't
when
it? That's the
it's
most important thing in life,
yeah,
isn't it? It's your lifestyle, right?
it gets done 99% guaranteed every day, all year round. So it's different to where else. So
And I think it's
but I do
initially the
miss.
pain barrier, isn't it? There's a big pain barrier in moving. Moving to Australia. I've got friends that moved to emigrate to Australia, and there definitely seems to be probably a 2 year pain barrier where it's dangerous to phone home too much, and dangerous to keep in touch too much, and to hang on to those,
Yeah.
that kind of thing, isn't it? Is there a pain barrier where you're going to go through and you say, actually, it's probably best not phone every day, kind of thing?
Oh, there's you kind of get that wherever you go, really. So when I moved to Dublin, I think you get a certain element.
Yeah,
It's just so far from anywhere. It's harder to just you know go back for the weekend. Although I have done that a few times. So yeah, it is. But yeah, if you're busy with your job and the family, yeah, it really hasn't been an issue at all for
yeah.
us. But I can understand if you've got too much free time, then it can really be a problem, I think.
And did you have any experience of squash? And how did you think it was different? Or did anybody say, did you say, I don't have a clue about squash? Or did you say,
No.
well, it's much the same, really? Or what did you think of that?
Well, I said Wales have got some good squash players,
Sure.
and now a few of the squash guys are friends of mine,
As
like
far
David
as a
Evans, who
pursuit,
won the
what do you
British
think
Open.
there's a difference of? As a pursuit compared to badminton and squash, what do you think the differences are?
Oh, there's a lot of
Is that?
similarities. So there's a lot more similarities than differences. Um, you find with squash, they're more the people that play are more. I'm talking social level, more competitive generally. So yeah, it's definitely a different social kind of group playing in that weekly sort of
Is
club
that?
scene. And I think badminton's good because it's a little bit more more of a variety, and there's more social. With squash, it's more like a cycling type piece where you go in between two walls and play and yeah, and then leave. So I think badminton's quite good from that social element. We lots of different people to talk to, play
Shame.
against.
Do you think that's
You
because
play it
do you think
social.
that's because when you play you're enclosed and you're not on an open court thing with people on the side and maybe not the
Yeah,
social thing of
yeah.
people watching?
Yeah, and I think badminton's a lot more technical, so there's a lot more variation in shot strokes options. Squash is typically can be more. The lack of options can make it more physical
Yeah.
in that sort of lower
Yes.
level. You can have a good workout, less technical things to worry about. So yeah,
Which
it's
is
an
more
interesting
interesting to
mix, but
people. I think maybe that's going to make a difference to the people that are just, yeah, it's interesting that, isn't it? The court thing, the fact that there's people around, they're sitting on a bench watching. There's a real exhibitionist side of things in badminton that maybe squash people in that wall, and there's two of them in the room only. And I know there's a lot of glass back courts, but there's also a lot of stone wall courts, right? Where people are just,
yeah.
this is the two of you. It's quite a private thing, squash, compared to badminton when you think, I suppose.
Yeah, it is, and it kind of transpires across. Look, the biggest issue squash has is the kind of the age of the facilities and the actual product. So it's a big one to try and overcome as well. So badminton has got a lot of options and diversity with, be it private club or council facility or, so there's a little bit easier access to
And there's
courts as well.
there's also, I mean, there's so much more in badminton. You hear everywhere, don't you? For example, I know the Irish facility shared with judo and other pursuits as well, where you can't get that in squash, right? Squash court has to be for squash. That's it. There's nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So then you tend to have a lot more commercial facilities that are, and this has been the big problem in Australia. There used to be maybe 2 million players in Australia, squash centers in every town, and then before I come in, they were down to about 100,000. Just when I left before Christmas, we're up to about 200,000.
Are you talking about individual? You're talking about individual members.
Yeah. So it was in the 80s. Every town had squash courts, and everybody played squash. So the tagline for squash in Australia is really squash. I used to play that.
Really?
So it was like everybody used to play. But if you think it's only squash and it's commercial, so the property prices in Australia have gone up so much exponentially that the actual squash centre now is worth a lot of money. And the individuals that opened the centres in the 60s and 70s are older. So it's a nice big pension pot where they probably bought it for £5,000 and can now sell it for £1 million. So depending on where they are, any city location. So that's the biggest problem. They're all being sold off because of the commercial model behind it.
It's really difficult. You can't. All of these, it's the same thing that comes to, I think, with badminton comes to, I think it's a similar thing where the more people that play it, the more money there is. The more money there is, the more people that play it. It's that, it's that same thing. If there were loads of people watch it, they'd get more sponsors. If there were more, then it just goes round and round and round. It's a really difficult one. But certainly, squash it's squash in the UK. I mean, I don't know how it does commercially. I've never looked. But like even where I am, there's a big hotel, what they call a hydro hotel, one of these big old buildings, right? And it had squash courts there for years, and then somebody says, okay, how much does it cost to maintain it? And see that little metal box on the wall that takes the 50 pences for the lights, how much does that make? And they do the maths and go, doesn't stack this.
Yeah. And gyms, bike, it's about how much money you can make per square meter, and unfortunately for squash, it doesn't quite stack up. The advantage of badminton is, in a badminton 1 meter square, you maybe 20 different sports because of the multi-purpose
football, basketball, everything.
Largely, yeah, exactly. So squash is it's a great sport, but non-Olympic as well. So it's tough, So it's
challenge.
It has to be kind of marketed and pieced really well. So it makes badminton appreciate the importance of the Olympics and kind of the platform that provides in terms of not just funding in, but prioritization within councils. And first thing they ask, are you in the Olympics?
Yeah.
Yes or no? Is a big factor. So.
Yes, that comes from the money coming in, doesn't it? And it's all towards this where money gets thrown at things, isn't it? Towards the Olympic times. I know there's no money in the Olympics, but representing of a country is, governments and all that. That's where the governments put money in. That's
why I really looked. So I did the role within badminton. It was really enjoyable, but I wanted to be challenged outside the sport. So I was looking for a kind of a multi-sport role or another sport.
Good. It's all good. Learning new things is all good, I think. Definitely.
Yeah.
So let's get onto your badminton, shall we? I'm just going to ask. I've got the standard questions, which, if you don't mind, I'll go through just as a matter of course. So your full name is Richard Vaughan, right? Do you have any middle names, Richard?
I do. You're on that as well. It's Lawrence.
Nice one. I'm gonna call you Laurie from now on. That's good. What did that come from?
It'd be my grandfather.
On your dad's side or your mum's side?
My mum's side.
That's nice. Your mum's dad. That's nice.
That's my Irish side, actually.
Oh, you're Irish, are you? Do you have Irish in you?
Half Irish, quarter Welsh, quarter English.
Yeah. So you've travelled a lot. Were you in Scotland as well?
I've been in Scotland, but I haven't got any Scottish
ancestry.
No.
And your age, Richard?
Old? 42.
42. That's not old. That's not old. That's not older, believe me. And so, where is your home area? Where did you very first start playing badminton?
In the valleys in
Was
Wales,
it?
actually. So Argoed is a coal mining kind of area in Wales. So yeah, really
Is that
lucky that
mid
there was a
Wales? Is
good.
it, Richard?
No, South
Is it?
Wales, just outside of
Oh,
Cardiff,
is it?
about 30 minutes. So like the big coal mining areas
Yeah.
from
My
before.
parents stay in
Um,
Pembroke Dock.
oh, that's the posh area.
Pembroke Dock? Don't think so.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah, that's the posh
Is
area
it
down there.
Pennar?
Yeah,
Is it Pennar?
yeah, it's nice.
Pennar. Yeah. And how did you? What was it like playing badminton there? What was the community like?
Good. Yeah, look, I think it was pretty well structured. So there was, lucky that there was two kind of good beginner level coaches running a junior
Yes.
club that were kind of linked into the national setup, and the national setup was good. There were county structures,
Was
clubs,
it a good
good
setup?
good
Good
members.
setup.
Yeah, so I don't know what the numbers were exactly, but I'd say the membership levels were, I don't know, say 5,000, 10,000 at that time, and now they're probably less than a
Yeah,
thousand.
it's
So
changed.
it
Yeah,
gives you a bit of a position where things are. None of the counties are running. Um, so yeah, that structure's
yeah.
kind of gone
It's
away.
difficult.
No real reason. It's just I think in most sports it's become harder to get that formalized
Structure.
structure with
I
volunteers and
know. I agree.
commercial.
We'll come to
So
that. Listen, let's carry on with the question. So, next one, brothers or sisters?
brother, yeah, Leon. So he's 8 years older than me, and a physio, which was very
And
handy
did
for me
he?
actually.
Was he a player?
Yeah, so he used to play. So I started playing when I was 6 because he was playing
Really good.
in that junior club. So yeah, so good player. Like good county. I think he got injured his knees and he went to uni and kind of stopped playing. The story of most players
So what
probably.
year? So what
So
were you? What year was that you were? I'm trying to think. Were you there in the days of Eddie O'Neill or not in Wales?
no, he was after me. So it would have been Lyndon
Lyndon.
Williams. Would have
Yeah.
been
Okay.
by the time I was around actually. So he did a lot of good work putting the
He's a
foundation
little bit. He's
together
a little bit older
around.
than you. Was he coaching you? Or?
Did a little bit of coaching, yeah. So he was, God, in fairness, I think he did everything, but he was the general manager as such. But yeah, did some coaching on one like
What
a
is it? Is
weeknight as
this
well.
this
And
is your club? And what was the club called?
oh, look, I had a couple of
Was
different
that good?
clubs. So I probably it kind of introduced to Linden more in the 12 when I was 12 or
Good.
13. Started playing when I was 6. So I probably worked with lots of different
Over the
coaches,
time.
from that
Let's go back to
development.
it from the early days, right? So when did what was your
Really.
motivation to start? Was he your brother, Leon?
Yeah, yeah. Generally, I used to play lots of sports, so I was quite competitive, and it was more. I used to play rugby, soccer. I was probably built more for rugby than badminton, to
Right.
be honest. But I like the challenge. So yeah, play. My brother, my cousin used to
Really?
play, same age as me. So him and I were like at the same level
Really?
all the way through to uni, and
What's his name?
he had the
What's his
brains.
name? Can I ask?
Um, Simon
Simon,
Richards.
which is nice. Thank you.
But he had the brains and went on to Southampton, did a PhD, and wanted to be a pilot and all that type of stuff, and lives in New York now. So yeah, I end up in Brisbane.
Did he
Terrible.
continue to play? Do you know?
Again, another one of those. Went to uni, played in uni a little bit casually, and kind of stopped really because of work and
Yeah,
all those things.
all of those things. You wonder if these people come back to it now. As time goes on and
Mm,
people contemplate what they used to love, which is what I do, and you contemplate what you love and what you in a normal life. What did you do? And I think in
yeah,
this time, the one blessing you've had, and say there's a blessing is having time to consider. Time to
yeah,
consider
yeah.
things that you do, things that
And
you
it's
like, things you
time
didn't like.
you need to access. Yeah, and being able to access it as well. In Australia and Queensland, there's no badminton, so it's really frustrating, really, from a
Really,
sport point of view. And it's probably a mixture of Australian more outdoor
yeah, of course.
sports, so it's not part of the culture.
Yes.
But then it's not very well organized here in this area where I
Is
am,
it?
unfortunately. Different story, probably in Sydney and Melbourne. It's kind of more organized and there's more.
And
badminton
do you have an
facilities.
inclination to organise or not yourself?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm actually just started coaching in my kids'
Brilliant.
school. So my kids are 5. I've got them into the school's asked me to run the club once
Brilliant.
they kind of Googled
That's
me.
brilliant.
I
Well,
said, oh,
listen,
you
I
can
think
knock
you
10%
just
off
got to
it.
think of you just got to. I know it's difficult to think of these things, but I always think that you should think about you should think about being that person. I've interviewed more than 50, 60 people now, and all the way down the line, you've got Leon, and people have got different influences, and you when you stop and think, you were 6 when you
Mm.
started, and the person that influenced you to start was your brother, who was 6 years older. You were 6, and all the way
Mm.
down the line, there was somebody who I've interviewed. There was somebody who's instrumental in
Yeah, yeah.
creating a love from a sport at that age, 6. You think so now. You
Hmm.
look at the 6-year-old and think, if I go down to badminton and organize a group of kids, honestly, who cares? I know it'd be nice and all that. It'd be nice to be with my kids and get into it. But actually, you actually could be creating something in 40 years' time. I used to play it because there was a guy, Richard Vaughan. He started a club, and I just loved it. And it could be you anyway.
Hmm. Oh, yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah,
I
good.
agree. I did some coaching, and you see that in Ireland as well. Lots of the young players that came into the
Yes.
system when I was there are still playing
Now.
now, which is really
Oh,
nice.
it's fun.
And then Spain, I did work in
Did
Spain as
you?
well, so this is a thing there. So.
Yeah, it's isn't it funny? Things like in places where there is, I mean, it is an alien thing. If you, as a badminton player myself, and obviously you grew up in the UK, and it's always cold, and it's always wet, it's always windy, and it's a winter sport, so it's
Mm.
something that you do in October when it's raining. You walk to the badminton, you soaking wet, and you get in, you take your tracksuit off and put shorts on, and you play badminton for 2 hours. But the idea of it being 29 degrees going in and
Yeah.
going. I mean, even myself. I mean, I run a summer club in Edinburgh, and even yourself, you look at a blue night straight from work, 5 o'clock. You've been in an office all day, and you think, right, I'm now going to
Mm.
go stand in a sports hall, rather than go and play golf or something outside. And sometimes it's too much. So
Mhm.
badminton, I can understand. But
Mm.
same as everywhere, you just have different seasons. But is the season the same in Australia? Is the badminton season in the rainy season, for example?
Yeah, kind of. It's the reverse of
Is it
Europe,
good?
but yeah, but yeah, it's a problem. Access to a facility in Australia generally is the problem. So actually finding badminton courts is not
Is
an
it
easy
really?
task, shall we say? Yeah. So in UK, there's still okay access, and I think that's the key thing is making it as easy as possible to get those people back on court, be it number of facilities, how far away they are, cost, times. So making them as because I think there's enough people there, but as you said earlier, it's making it easy for them to kind of access and get back
And get
into the
into
game.
it,
Really, I think.
yeah. Okay, let's get back to the questions.
I think England do a good job in that space,
Did it? Yeah.
but it's all about funding levels and
And everything
everything
else. So
else,
it's
really.
interesting. I was chatting to who was I chatting to last night? I was talking to somebody last night about badminton Ireland. About who was I talking to last? I was messaging somebody last night. Do you know who it was? It was Mark Toppin.
Oh,
I was
really?
chatting to Mark Toppin last night, and I know he's got his own channel. I know you were on with him. And I was chatting to him last night, and we were talking about the grant system in the grant system for clubs in Ireland. About how, and I was because when I interviewed Dan Evans, I knew about the grant system. I said, "How does that work? Surely, if a club's not open,
Mm.
there's nobody going. You don't need to pay for a hall. You don't need to pay for any shuttles. So where's the cost?"
Mm.
And he just said, "Well, he said, well, what they're trying to do is trying to give people confidence, and if they can give a club money, which could
Mm.
allow them to buy shuttle, for example, that might last them for 3 months, for example, then the first 3 months of play back to badminton is cheaper, right? And if they
Yeah, yeah.
manage to, and if even more than that, they manage to cover the cost of a hall for 3 months, then actually you're able to offer
Yeah.
your membership free badminton for 3 months, including shuttles, which is just ridiculous. And that is talking about a
Mm.
massive injection of getting people. Would you like to come and play badminton for 2 hours for free for 3 months? It's unbelievable,
Mm.
right? And that's actually a
Yeah.
really
No,
good system.
and Ireland's interesting actually because when I was there, we had a real facility issue in terms of hosting major events and the high performance team. So those high-end facilities they were struggling with, and since then they've built the National Centre and a few other things, so now they're fine. But there are so many clubs in Ireland, small ones, that are kind of close to everybody.
Mark said there's
clubs.
70 clubs in Dublin.
Yeah.
70 clubs in Dublin.
Yeah. So it's really, from that point of view of being able to find a club to get back on court, it's really good. And there's a lot of people playing in Ireland, and that's a real strength for them.
It's amazing, but yet when I spoke to Mark, he says it's on the decline, which I find incredible. Mm-hmm. But I like the system. They were talking about, when I interviewed Dan and Dave McGilly, talking about the system for grading players in regional areas, where you get A to H, and if you're an A or if you're an H, and then they have competitions for H's and the competitions for such a great idea and such a structured idea, to have the idea of having a scout or a scout or somebody of a kind that works for a badminton authority, going around, touring around, or just having representation in each and every area for somebody that says that guy's an H, that guy's an F, that guy's a G, and that's
what I think.
Brilliant.
Squash is good. Because squash, for some time, I think as well. We really kind of harnessed it with Squash Australia, but they've had an automated computer system for doing that for a long time. So basically, every match that you would play would kind of get recorded. You get an algorithm would give you kind of a ranking. So if there are 20,000 players in the country, they're kind of ranked 1 to 20,000, and you can kind of see your match scores. And if you play somebody else in your club or doubles, you get a proportion of points. So if they're ranked higher than you, you get kind of bonus points. So everything you play within the system gives you this matrix kind of.
But interestingly though, you have to compete to get on that.
Compete, but they would include club nights, for example, if you wanted. Yeah. So every game you played. So if you wanted to challenge me to a lunchtime match tomorrow, you would kind of log it as a friendly lunchtime match. So it's scaled. The number of points is a little bit less than a form of competition. You get
Richard, that is amazing.
Really good.
So does that mean every club has an official?
Yeah. Look, most clubs, there'll be your club administrator. So they oversee it. They report any funny results. Then the county or equivalent would have somebody responsible for looking into that. And that's how it works with the grading in Ireland, really. It's you're just digitalizing
that it. That is absolutely brilliant. I didn't know any of that. That's absolutely brilliant. Sorry, going back to my questions. This is what happens. I go off at a tangent, and we've been chatting already for 30 minutes. I'm on question number 4. What age did you start playing? I know that you were 6. Do you remember your first racket?
Oh, yeah, it was a Carlton 3.8S.
3.8X? S, that's the first one.
Yeah.
I had a 3.7X and I dreamt of a 3.8S. And I remember my brother Barry had a 3.7S and he loved, black. It was black and red. It was black and red, wasn't it?
Racket. Yeah, I went with the color. So that was my racket. Before that, I was probably using some iron Carlton racket.
3.7X. That was my 3.7X. Did you have the 3.7X with a flat bladed shaft to make it extra flex? It was a really thin shaft and it would flex. Inevitably, it would actually snap. It would bend so much it snapped. Yeah, not great technology. But the 3.7S, because I had a graphite. What I remember, this is where I get excited. I had a graphite shaft. What was your? Okay, there's a question I've never asked anybody before. What was your dream racket? When you started, what was your dream racket? So you had the 3.8S. What was the racket you thought, I'd love one of them?
I think I was quite content with the 3.8S.
You didn't want a Boron Classic. A Carlton Boron Classic. Do you remember that? It was almost brown.
Yeah.
With gold.
Yeah. Well, look, possibly.
And it was a single piece construction. Single piece.
Yeah. Maybe. No, I was quite content, I think, with that. And then whoever used to sponsor me, I was happy with that. I was cheap.
You're cheap. Oh, you'd be knackered now, wouldn't you?
I knew there was no point blaming the equipment, and it was probably
I don't
me.
know how to do that. I don't know how to do that. I mean, if I was a professional player and somebody says, "Okay, I'm going to be sponsored by X," I'm not going to mention any names, but if I was sponsored by somebody, and you thought, "Ugh, to be honest, that you'd be really torn, wouldn't you? You'd be really torn. I really want the money, but the rackets
You
are
just
rubbish.
you just get the 3.8S back out, and you file everything down, put a different color paint on it. It's fine.
And that's what you do. And yeah, okay, I'll come back. I'll come to the question about what you've got now. What age were you when you first started playing? What did you first racket? What was the name of your first club, and what was the hall like?
Yeah, so that was when I was 6. So that was Bargoy Junior
How do you
Club,
spell that? Bar? How do you spell
and it
Bardo? What's that?
Bargoed.
Bardo. Okay.
Bargoy. And it was a lovely concrete floor,
Good for your knees. Good for your knees,
and
that Rich.
yeah, and whatever the minimum height is,
That
it
was
was that
it.
height. So there's no high clearing, but it was okay. It was
So did you have
playable.
a very good backhand clear, drive clear?
Just net
What was
shots,
that?
net
Was
shots and
that?
smash.
Yeah. I was
If it went past that,
I
you were
was
done.
taught I was taught that if you needed to use your backhand, you've got bad footwork. That's what I was taught. Is that you should be
Yeah,
able to come around everything. But you watch it now, they're positively turning
yeah.
onto their backhand. Which it
Yeah, I think I used to get told I was lazy if I played
Yeah, I
backhand.
think so. I think well
So
that's just if you watch the exceptional players, they don't use their backhand.
no, exactly. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
quite.
yeah.
I think it becomes quite. I suppose it's probably quite energy efficient. Who am I to criticize these
Yeah.
players, honestly? So, what was the whole like? Do you remember how much it cost? Don't know. You probably not remember that.
A court or
A
a club? It
court,
was
a
like
flight, and
two or
the
three.
club night, if you like.
Yeah, like two or
Yeah.
£3.
How often did you play when you first started? Like at 6, did you just go once, or was it?
Yeah, once a week, twice a week,
Yeah.
and then 8. I was probably because I won the nationals at
Did
8,
you?
so junior. So I was probably playing 4 or 5 times.
And how did you? Where did you learn? Who was? I'm going to come on to that. I'm going
Yeah,
to
so
come. I'll come.
I
I'll
was
come on
doing
to
that.
that. Hold on a second. I'll come on to that. Your first shuttles, please. Plastic or
Oh, plastic. Yeah, it would have been those brutal Carlton ones. I can't even remember what they.
Mavis 300s, I reckon.
No, they were called the Carlton ones. They were the Mavis was like a luxury. These were like we were using Carlton. I remember
Yeah.
like the
Are
red
they
ones
the
with
are
the
they the ones that you can buy in Sainsbury's now? Probably.
yeah like
Yeah, the
that was
yellow.
the new
Quite a lot of them. Quite a lot of them are yellow.
I
And
think they've
so
remanufactured them as the outdoor shuttle now. I think I'm not sure.
yeah, those with air shuttles. Terrible
Hmm.
idea. So this brings on the next question, which is about coaching. So from 6, when you went with Leon at 6, and he was 14, right?
Yeah.
Was he getting coached?
Yeah, he had a bit of coaching from one or two of the coaches in the area. And then
And
I
when did
guess
you
that's
start
how I
getting coached? Yeah,
yeah I was about 7, 8. So
yeah.
I probably have coaching once a week, twice a week. I'm playing a club twice a week, so four times.
And were you at
Um,
school did you have any coaching at school, or did you play at
no,
school or
no,
anything?
at school, no. In the Welsh rallies, you don't really,
Yeah.
you're lucky if there's bricks and a roof in a school. So back then, so there was no sport in school. So other than what you did in lunchtime.
So straight from
Uh,
school, or was it close to your house, or that kind of thing, or what
yeah,
was that?
after school. So yeah,
Was
like
it?
5 to 7, something like that. And Saturday mornings was the club. So yeah,
Or was it Saturday mornings at the club? Quite new. I suppose when you're
morning.
young, I suppose that's what happens, isn't it? And where was
Yes,
the club at the same place where you learned, where you went through the week? Was it the same place?
no, different, all different places.
Was it?
So if I played 3 or 4 times a week, I went to 3 or 4 different facilities,
Right.
all with the premium concrete floor, which I think explains my hip operation when I was 19.
Did you really? It really does, by the way. It
Yeah,
does.
it just doesn't make sense because I'm in squash, which is the same as badminton. Plus, in badminton, you're jumping. In
Yeah.
squash, everything's wood. Nobody would have seen a squash court without a wood floor.
Yeah.
But for badminton, you can play on concrete. It's okay. So it just doesn't make sense.
Jim Mailer's his knees are buckled. His knees are terrible, Jim. He can't play badminton because
Yeah.
his knees. Don't know if you saw that interview.
Well, that's mine now as well. Actually, I've had 4 knee ups in the last
Have
2 years. So cartilage in my knee. Yeah, so I can't. I can only swim now, pretty much. I literally, yeah,
Really?
I'm the same.
Golf?
Probably golf. I can't afford the golf. No, swimming for now, and then when I get more time.
To be fair, I love pool swim or the sea swim. Are you able to do all that?
Too many sharks, yeah. So
Really? Is there that many sharks that couldn't go in the sea for swimming?
yeah, actually, more deadly than the sharks is the jellyfish.
Really, that's.
And if you get past the jellyfish and the sharks, they're crocodiles as well, so it's okay.
That's what you call living the dream in Britain.
It looks lovely. You just can't go in there.
That's so funny. Looks amazing. Look how beautiful the sea looks. Do you want to go in for a dip? No. Don't they have nets and all that stuff to stop sharks and all that?
In certain areas, they've got nets, but the nets only go down about 10 meters. So they can be 50-meter deep,
Really?
but the nets just do the 10 meters. So and there's also holes in the net as well, and they don't do nets around where the boats go. So
really,
it's it's a bit of a challenge. Right?
So it's not worth going in the sea. So nobody goes in the sea. So you go down to the beach and it's lovely, and everybody's sitting having picnics and barbecues, but nobody's in the sea.
Yeah, you're going to do your chest or your belly button, and that's about it, really. I think. Yeah. You don't see too many doing a good old swim in the sea.
I was watching a video the other day, and somebody was like, they were talking about the sharks and stuff like that, and they're like, oh look, there's a shark, and I was like, are you mental? What are you doing? Standing in the sea, knee high in the sea, in the sea. Like, what are you doing? It's it's a world, isn't it? So back to the question. So who was your coach?
Oh, I had lost. So it was Malcolm Davis, Norton Blunt in that first club. Then I had a when I was younger, then Don Griffiths was a local coach who was a bit more technical. Then there was another coach in the club called Gary Reese who was more tactical.
Wow.
So that.
So was that a very good standard club, Richard? It sounds very. Why does it sound so advanced? It sounds really organized and serious.
It was well structured and quite a lot of players in the area, really. So the junior club was good for junior, and then from there I went to an adult club, kind of the best adult club. Look, when you're 11 or 12, any adult club's good.
Yes.
I think the key thing is the people running it, making a bit of a pathway, and just focusing on technique or fitness, and not just playing games. And so I was lucky enough to have people that were kind of qualified around that, I guess. So that was up to 12. Yeah.
And who was it? Do you think that if you were to attribute your passion for badminton, is there somebody that you could put your name to and say it was him?
I think everybody contributed different amounts at different times.
I'm not necessarily talking about your professional career or what gave you the best advance, but I'm just more interested in who, if there was somebody that drove your interest in it from the beginning, that you thought, if it hadn't been for him, I don't know if I would have done it.
Yeah, look, I don't know. There were just so many people. I don't think I could really pick out one. And obviously my parents.
That's a good problem, yeah.
With most players, with the parents kind of driving them and paying for everything is like critical in modern sports. So, probably them, Ray, for facilitating everything. Awesome. And I was just lucky. There was so many people about that kind of offered different things, So it was a good environment.
Were you a one-off, Richard? Were you on your own going to these different events, or was there a group of people going together, or when you were taxiing together, were you all going together, or was it just you? Or
no, so there was a couple of us. So I had a cousin the same age.
Really?
So that was that was handy.
Good.
We kind of co-shared things. So exactly the same age, same school, same level, pretty much. So we were both the top couple in Britain.
Yeah.
And then within our group, there were, luckily again for us, that players probably a bit older than us, that were say in the top kind of 5 players in Britain.
Really?
1 year older, 2 years older, 3 years older, 4 years older. So it was a very strong cohort. Kelly Morgan was in the same group. So we were all in the same group, and luckily I was the youngest. So I really benefited from.
Huge.
So it was good.
Huge benefit.
And then it becomes
allowing people to aspire to be,
Yeah. As I said, it gets more challenging as you get older, because you just don't have that luxury of age and playing older players, and you've got to try and have better quality and higher level coaches and training, really. But yeah, at that age, it was perfect. And that's what you get in Denmark. In Denmark, there's so many good players that are just average club players there that are good, and technically so many coaches. Even in one club, there's 20 people that could coach. So it's just the volume really that and the diversity, I guess, and the structure that gives so many of the players opportunity.
Do you put a big emphasis on the quality of the people that you play against? Do you believe that you can only be as good as the person that you're playing against, or you're being coached by?
Yeah, like as you get older, definitely, you kind of want to be losing all the time. So you want to be playing people that you can't beat and challenge. So yeah, you're never really playing or trying to win in training. You're kind of trying to find as hard a competition as possible. So anything from 12 up, really. And like I said, I was lucky because I had players 1 year older than me, 2 years older than me, 3 years older than me, and they were all British level. So I played for Wales when I was 15 in the Thomas Cup. And so then I was playing against, for example, Mark Topping and Michael Watt and Ireland in team matches. And so then I moved on to international type of players when I was 15. And yeah, I guess they all play their part in transitioning. Because most players, there's so many good young players around, but the biggest problem is transitioning from junior to adult.
Yes, I agree.
So yeah, that type of challenging and having different levels to kind of target is really important.
Can I ask you a question about something I've been thinking about?
Mm-hmm.
I've started following a lot of players, a lot of national players, and at the moment there's so much going on. Excuse me. There's so much going on with with COVID and all this kind of stuff that's happening, and there's so much involved with travel. And getting places to get into tournaments. I mean, it's already a nightmare, a player going from Wales to Spain to Germany to wherever, right? And something that interests me is losing. Is losing is it's like at the moment there's so much you've got to go through to get somewhere, and just the upheaval that you have, the coaching, the preparation towards an event, the coaching, the strenuous, the psychological, the physical, the diet, all the emphasis on all of the different things, then going through all the protocols and tickets and hotels and all the stuff that goes to get you on court wherever you've gone from Wales, and arriving on day one and losing.
Yeah, I know it's challenging.
How is that? What's I'm just curious to it takes real serious mental strength, right?
Yeah. Thankfully, it didn't happen too much to me, so it's okay.
By the way, I don't mean to be arsy about that. I am genuinely interested in. It's not something that I can ask a player, current national player, because nobody wants to talk about it, right? Nobody thinks about it. Definitely nobody wants to talk about it. And so, but it is a part of it, when you've gone through such upheaval to get you somewhere, and then to arrive on day one and arrive on court and say, to be honest, I didn't play my best. That must be really, really tough.
Well, I could probably put that into 3 brackets, really, in terms of that happening. So first one is everything's good, and you go to a competition where you got a chance of winning, and you might lose that first game. Now, normally, you've probably been up against a good opponent that might have been injured coming back, or I can remember once I won 2 tournaments in a row. The Welsh Open was the second one, and then I had the Irish Open, and I kind of expected to win Irish Open, and I had Pontichianti first round, who was an older player than me from Finland, who was probably top 10 in the world in his day, but he was older, and it was a wood floor, and I think it was the first round I had him, and he really was kind of world class in one match, and then he probably got tired after that. Yeah. And I was struggling to move from the last 2 weeks, and it didn't really go so well, and I lost. So things like that are disappointing.
At what stage did you lose, though?
In terms of
had you won several games and then you'd lost in the final?
No,
or...
first round.
Right.
First round.
Good. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
I think he probably lost in the semi or final, but he was probably about 34, 30. Then he was kind of finishing, but for one match he was good. But I was like for 3 days probably after the final at the Welsh, I couldn't really move.
Yeah.
So just tired from playing. So that's disappointing. And then the second one you've got, which is probably the most frustrating one, is because if you lose and there's nothing wrong, then you can basically just train harder or do better or go for a run, and you can kind of use it in a constructive way.
Yes.
But the second one's harder is when you're injured. So normally you've got a niggling injury. So I've had twice in my career I had quite big injuries where I was injured for 1 year or 1.5 years, and doctors don't know what's wrong, and you try playing with it.
Well,
and then you lose to people.
Are you talking about like in an Andy Murray kind of style? Where you just keep on.
Yeah, well, actually, Andy Murray has got exactly what I had, actually. So a labral tear in my hip, where obviously back when I had it, they didn't know what that was, and they didn't have the scanning to find it.
Yes.
So they couldn't really diagnose it. I think Roy Keane was the first to kind of get it, and I was about the same time as that. So then you're playing with an injury. Yeah. Basically, what that means is you're not training as much volume-wise, so you're probably not as in great shape. But basically, you keep pulling the muscles around your hip, adductor, and you get little injuries all over.
And you avoid certain movements. You say, just try not to do that, or try not to go there, or try not to do this, or that stuff.
You basically train without doing full court things, and the doctors don't know what's wrong. You've had 6 months off, and they tell you to try and play again, and a number of your losses are like that, really. And I had a number of losses at different times like that, which is, they might be in a semi-final against a good player, but you're hampered by the injury, but nobody probably knows that.
Yeah.
And so that's frustrating. So Andy Murray and Roy Keane, when he had that bust up with McCarthy before in Japan, for example, that was all about his injury and the fact that he couldn't play on a hard surface because of the injury. So that's definitely the most frustrating, because people outside don't know about it. So yeah, those two. The third one then is probably going to things like Super Series or top events where you get into the first round, you got like a Chinese #1 first round world champion, and
I can kind of understand that, because I guess you're thinking, I'm just happy to be here to play at this level, which is a thing. I think I think it's the frustrations that I see, and I was also quite interested to know. So when you arrive, I see players. So let's say you go and play wherever, and it appears to be, I'm right in saying that basically you play, you book yourself a hotel, you stay in the hotel, and you go back to that room and you train and you do all the rest of it, and then you play your games, and if you lose, you immediately go home. Is that what happens?
Yeah, pretty much. Now, it depends. And this is
the other bit. There's no staying and watching the rest of a competition.
No, it depends on who your travel agent is. So for me, I did everything myself. Some of the other teams, in England, for example, the team might book it, so then you might have to stay for 4 days. But for me, I would.
Sorry. It's interesting how you said might have to stay for 4 days. That was a big chore. You didn't want to do that. There was no element of you that wanted to see it. They wanted to see the other people play and to say you've no interest in seeing other people play. That you would have competed against had you won.
Yeah, look, if you're there, you would do that, and you'd use the time to do some analysis and try and train the best you can. But generally, when there's a competition on, it's hard to train because you can't get on the courts because they're closed off, and then the practice hall is probably concrete. There's no physio there. There's no, so it's just hard to train, And for me, I was paying for everything.
Yes.
So every night you're there, you're paying. So it was just basic maths, really. It was kind of cheaper to change and fly back than stay there. So if you're in a team environment like England, they're not paying. So it's booked centrally. It's not coming out of their money. And there might be a bit better coordination around training. So, it depends on your situation. But
when you're younger, probably see that as a team benefit of you staying and watching, conceivably.
Yeah, look, I don't think it's that. I think it's just they got so many players. It's too much
I say,
administration hassle to change everybody's flight. You know what I mean? It's like a full-time job. So, um, and then the players, because they didn't do that on a daily basis, they didn't really know how to do
yeah.
that. So that's why, being from Wales for me was good. I had to do everything myself. I didn't have a lot of support,
Well, I talked to
but
Jordan Hart. She's very much like that as well. Yeah,
it kind of develops you as an individual.
yeah,
So there's kind of fours and
yeah,
against. But going back to
yeah.
the Super Series, it is quite hard actually. So that the injury one's definitely the hardest. But if you go to China Open, you're jet lagged. You've probably been there for 2 nights. You haven't slept much. You got Lindan first round. You're in a huge stadium. It's windy. It can be
Really
pretty
windy, windy.
yeah, like with some
They
of in
talk about
China in
drift, but
particular.
it's serious, is it? It's windy
Oh, in China's the worst I've been to. I think. Yeah, it's just they're such
because of
large
aircon.
stadiums, and they don't think about it. No, this is 15, 20
Yes.
years ago, so they are a lot better now. But yeah, it can be really tough. It's the combination of jet lag. So if it was the All England or the Swiss Open, it's not as bad because you're better prepared. But sometimes, in the China Super Series, for example, there's no warm-up courts, there's no practice. You get off a plane, you might be doing nothing for a day, and then you got to go on court play that. So, that can be really
Yeah.
uh, frustrating in a different way, shall we say.
And how are they prepared for it, do you think? How are they prepared for it? You're not.
Oh, they get access to the
I
courts in the
say,
morning,
yeah,
and
I say,
typical of China, they get special privy, and they've got another hall where they can
I
train, and
say.
there's normally about 100 of them, so it's very well organized. So it's yeah. So but the injury one's tough, and yeah, it's
What was the biggest tournament you played in? The biggest event?
look, probably the Olympics, probably, yeah.
Was it?
Look, it's the pinnacle for badminton,
Yeah.
so which is really nice. It's really it's professional. Obviously, the BWF have really improved on the professionalism side now with the Super Series, and so yeah, which is good for it's kind of getting better year on year. So but yeah, the Olympics is good, and you've got the multi-sport aspect, and the British Olympic Association are really good, really professional in fairness, and
Yeah.
yeah, so
How do you think the
that's
money
good.
affects the badminton? How do you think? I mean, obviously, I don't know. Like badminton players, they're not really commercially driven people. Everybody drives to go to the Olympics, and everybody wants to go to the Olympics. And obviously, it's a massive thing. It's a big honor to represent your country, which is what obviously everybody drives for. But there's so much I'm learning about the commercials of badminton, where you go and you earn this and you earn that, and you pay for this and you pay for that. Um, it's interesting. Don't you think? I'm quite interested that there's no money, right? It's just about the honor, and that it's a
Yeah, look,
different thing. I wonder if there's people that don't do as well because there's no money in.
yeah, no, definitely. It's with a lot of the young players I work with, you kind of set the realistic tone in terms of what they could earn, money they're going to make, and so they make the right type of decisions around
Yeah.
education. Um, I've heard about a few countries' policies where they were defunding players that were studying,
All right.
which is just crazy.
Sorry,
And
say that
again,
again. Defunding. What's that?
so basically removing their
Oh,
funding
really?
if they were in university. So if they didn't train full time,
Really? Whoa.
the national center, then they lose their funding. Um, so yeah, and Denmark's a really good example because of their education system and just culture is really positive. So they've got lots of good players, but they're all generally studying part time or doctors and different things, and it kind of shows that you can do
Yes.
it. But Denmark society is quite sophisticated in fairness. They're very good, and it's a small country and everything else. But it's yeah, you got to be realistic. It's more about the journey, I
Yeah.
guess, of trying to
The,
achieve goals and what you develop.
yeah, it's interesting. That's an interesting one for another day. That one about the money side for sure. But not about the money, but about the decision to become, to go from a hobbyist to a professional. That thing of. Tell me about that for you. When did you say okay, this is something I love doing. I love playing badminton. I don't know what else I do. I just love playing badminton. At what point did you say, and did you have a conscious thing where you said, I'm going to do this all the time and I'm going to make money from it? And who said you could make money from it? Being in South Wales with nothing there around you and nobody having done it before, who said you can? This is how you live financially with this.
Well, thankfully, like, as I said, my cousin had all of the IQ in the family, so it was. I didn't really
Sorry,
play
what's
because of the
what's
money. It was
IQ,
because
Richard? What's that?
kind of the
Right.
intellect in the
Okay.
family,
Okay.
shall we say.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So I didn't really play because of the money. It was more the competitive piece and trying to achieve different goals, which kind of kept changing all the
Really.
time. But yeah, it was never really the money for me. Now I made some
There
money
must
along
have
the
there
way,
must have
which
been
was
something like that though. Where did it start? I mean, there must have been. You must have thought. Were you living at home? Where was you? How
yeah,
were
living
you
at home.
affording to
Yeah, yeah,
live? I suppose you're living at home, so the money wasn't.
yeah. Look, yeah, no, back to your point there, living at home, parents really supportive. And like, as I said, you've got to have supportive parents with the system in place. Um, but I had good results from when I was quite young,
Yeah.
and I was lucky. I was funded by what was then Sport Wales.
Right.
So I had some funding, a grant there, and kind of we had a really good performance director called Lars Sologub for about 6 years. So he did some good work with UK Sport and them, and I had kind of
I see.
decent individual
I
funding,
see.
shall
I
we say?
suppose I think the thing I forget, especially now because I'm older, is that it's not like now, is it? You're when you're older, when you're my age and your age, you have proper responsibilities and mortgages and all that stuff. When you look at it in your 20s, most of your peers are at university or they've just started a job. They don't have big financial gain. They're not making a fortune. They don't have big mortgages. They're not like so. My reality just now is, right, hold on a minute. How is somebody going to make £1,000 a month to pay their rent, kind of thing? And it's not that. You're a student. You effectively your pals are working in bars and supermarkets, and you're doing something a little bit different. So nobody has big expectations of money in your 20s, I
No,
suppose.
yeah, exactly. And I said you can live quite cheap around then, and you're playing and training, and yeah, no, it's quite good. And I had another lucky piece I had was the Welsh Institute of Sport. So there was I had good sports science in terms of testing and physical preparation, and like all of that was taken care of. So yeah, so there's so many little building blocks along the way, but the funding one's a big one, and that was kind of there. If that hadn't have been there, then I probably would have moved to Denmark
Would you?
probably about a bit earlier and played for a club and being funded
Yeah.
and because I did that for a period as well. So that's the other avenue really is to you basically do some of the coaching in the club and you play for the
Yeah.
club and you
Really.
would get a kind of a salary and they would pay for the tournaments.
Yeah. And what about university? Did you ever go there, or did you ever contemplate going there?
Yeah, yeah, no. So funny. I got injured when I was 19. So I was out for 18 actually. I was out for 2 years pretty
Really?
much,
Wow, that's
and
painful.
kind of
Sorry,
started
what was
a
that? What
IT
was the
degree.
injury? What was it?
Hip. So that was
At
my
18? Wow,
label.
wow, wow.
Yeah. So I had a big operation, a core decompression, which is like what they give you when you have osteoporosis. It's quite a big thing. So I started an IT degree, and luckily
Where was that?
in
Oh, nice,
Cardiff
nice.
Uni.
Yeah.
And then my luckily my rehab went really well. After the operation, I qualified for the Olympics in Sydney within 12 months.
Wow.
So I kind of
Having
pulled
been
out
out for
of
two
the uni.
years.
And,
Wow.
yeah. Um, so yeah, it was. Then I started an open uni distance kind of degree in economics. So I did that over 6 years.
Wow.
When I was finished playing, I did a master's in Bath University,
Wow.
and then when I was in Ireland, I did an MBA
Did you? Well
um,
done. That's
as well.
awesome.
So
That's
and
brilliant. That's how you keep your brain busy.
yeah, and now I think I'm just starting a PhD as well.
Yeah,
So
well, that's awesome.
distance as well.
You've got to
Yeah.
keep
So
you've got to keep yourself active. I suppose when you're at university in Cardiff, you were able to continue to train and in your normal places because were you living at home then when you're in
yeah,
Cardiff Uni?
yeah, yeah. And to be honest, that was when I was injured. So I literally couldn't train anyway. So all I could do was basically swim and do some gym.
Yeah.
I couldn't do anything weight bearing for a year.
So you
So
did really well to come
yeah,
back, right? That's amazing, isn't it?
and I think that's why it's important. The education piece. Look, every player gets injured or ill or
Yes.
something. So having something else is pretty
Crucial.
yeah
I think you've
important.
got to have a distraction because when you're growing up and you love badminton, you play badminton all night. Most nights you go to school all day and then you go and play badminton at nights and weekends. But when your weekends become your daytime, you've got to have some for the night time and the weekends, right? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Weekends obviously tournaments happen and you normally coach in the night time, so a big part of you says, "Well, what am I going to do all night?" kind of thing, because I've been playing badminton all day, kind of idea. And it's open universities, especially in Scotland. Education's free. You apply to
Yeah.
the Open University and it's paid for. It's for free. You can get an Open University. It's amazing ability, amazing thing to get. So sorry, I'm going back to questions because we've already been on. We've been on for an hour. Would you believe that? And it must be, what time is it over there now?
Nine-ish.
Okay, you need to be getting the kids to bed if they're not already.
Oh, it's quiet, so they must be sleeping. So it's like,
Do you remember your first tournament ever? Tournament?
first tournament ever. Ooh. Yeah, I could narrow it down, but it would be something like a Mid Glamorgan junior county tournament in Barry or something like that. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, again, it was well organized, so lots of kind of structure. And there would have been a lot of players at that tournament, under 11, 13,
Really
15. Yeah, so it was really quite good.
amazing. What was your most successful event? Were you a singles player always?
No, I used to play doubles.
Did
So my
you?
cousin and
Did
I
you?
used to play
Did you?
doubles.
Is that right?
So yeah, so I was a doubles player pretty much
Were
all the
you?
way through to 18, 19. Well,
And
yeah.
what was your cousin called? And he was
Simon.
your partner, Simon.
Yeah,
Did you say Simon Richards was it?
yeah.
So he was your. Wow,
So
that's
yeah,
brilliant.
we would have played in the national team senior, like at 16, and yeah, so he was good.
And
Yeah.
how did you manage to keep in touch with him when you're going through all of this stuff? Where was he? Was he local to you? And did he continue to play with him for years?
Yeah. So he literally lived in the same village.
Really?
So same school, same
Wow.
class. Like we literally couldn't
That's
get
like
rid of
close.
him.
Then you must be really close with him, right?
Yeah, yeah. So then when we got to 18, he went to uni, and then obviously he went to New York, and I went to Brisbane. We've been it's too close, too long.
Is he better than you?
No.
I have to ask that question.
We were different type of players. So he was very good, and he was a good athlete as well, and he was left-handed actually,
Oh,
so a little
good.
bit
That's good, isn't it? That's interesting.
yeah, lefty. So yeah, no, it's good again. I think it's good to have kind of push and pull. So the same with my twins. They're only 5, but my daughter is natural and kind of good at everything,
Yes.
but doesn't learn and listen, and has got a short attention span. And then my son is less good at everything, but is really good at learning.
Yeah.
So the two of them balance each other off perfectly. So in terms of development, it's nice to have different types of challenges, and so yeah, he was definitely
When
part
you
of that.
grow up so young, when you grow up so close to somebody in badminton, I know what it's like to kind of. I've got a big family and a close, quite well. We were quite close growing up. We were quite close. We've moved geographically, but when you're involved in sport at a young age, you spend a lot of time together, don't you? And like how much time do you spend in the car with your cousin going to tournaments? And all of
Yeah,
those,
all the time.
you must miss him terribly now. Do you still, or not really? Do you think?
Not really.
Don't you?
No. We do a
Do you
phone
speak
call
a lot?
twice a year or something.
Do you? Do you?
Yeah.
But you must think back to
So
those
you
days and you think, how much time do you spend in the car with people playing I Spy with My Little Eye?
Yeah, exactly. We literally, all the time. So it is.
Especially in
It
Wales,
is.
especially in Wales, because it takes you 3 hours to go 7 miles.
Exactly. No, it was a strange one. So now we speak twice a year. We put the kids on
Do you?
Skype, Christmas, Easter, and
That's
right.
good. Well, hopefully you can share this video. Who was your main? Do you have anybody you could say was your main competition as a pairings? Then who was there a couple that you really struggled to beat?
Oh look, England had lots of good players. Again, it was a real benefit to us that England was so strong. So In juniors, in our age, you had Anthony Clark, Ian Sullivan, who were good. You had older than us, Michael Edge and Mark Constable. And then there was like another, 3 or 4 pairs around them that were really decent as well. So it was kind of European level.
They were your targets there.
Yeah, it was really good. So if you were the best in Britain, you're the best in Europe, and then you're kind of competitive globally. So it was a real healthy system, actually.
Was Denmark as strong then as it is now? Or do you think it's stronger? Do you think it's stronger now?
No, they were really strong then as well. So you had Peter Gade, obviously, but you had another guy called Rasmus Starsgaard, who was better than Peter Gade in juniors and stopped playing. Then in my age, you've got Joachim Fischer, Kasper Odom, Fangel. There's 7 really good players that were playing. So yeah, no, like Denmark were probably stronger then in terms of volume, and just the UK were really, really strong. So it was a good system.
Fantastic. Right, I'm going to move on because I've kept you so long already. I feel terrible. What's your current racket?
My current one is my leftover Carlton racket. Ireland will be proud to hear. I think it's a Razor V something. Actually, it looks really nice. It's nice and red with a bit of silver.
Nice.
So it's
a Razor V. Is it Carlton? I used to be a Carlton man. I didn't know they sold to Dunlop. Somebody told me that a few years ago.
They've been sold, resold on again like a couple of times.
I might go back then. I only left it because of Dunlop. It just reminded me of tires. I didn't. Whenever I see that Dunlop, oh no, not for me. My brother stayed with them. What tension strings do you use in tension? Do you know?
Oh, now whatever's left. But before, it was 32.
What's that? That's high. Really?
Yeah, I used to. Oh, look, it's quite expensive. I go through, like 10, 15 a week training. So thankfully, my dad had some free time, so he would.
You stringing me, did he? That's good. Did he never say to you, "Look, Richard, you're kidding yourself on. You're kidding yourself on. You're going down to 27. I'm not even going to tell you." He probably didn't even. He probably did that and didn't even tell you. So it's good. How do you manage family life in badminton? So that's good that you're getting the twins involved. That's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Yeah, no, they're pretty sporty. So I'm sure
that's
they'll.
Absolutely awesome. They've got a lifetime of singles partnership. That's awesome. What your favorite event now? Would you still say do you play? Have you played in Australia at all? Badminton.
Only between my wife used to play as well, so we just play with the kids. Yeah, so
she's from where you are as well. She's from South Wales as well.
She used to play for Estonia.
Oh, really? Wow.
Up by Finland. So she was the number one. And so like 30, 40 in the world. Good level.
Tell her she's on next Saturday morning.
Okay, I'll book her in.
Yeah, so that's good. So did you ever play with her at badminton? That is.
Yeah, a few club and a bit. The usual partnership. It doesn't go well to play mixed with your wife. It's the typical.
Do you like mixed?
Yeah, I used to play a lot of mixed with Kelly Morgan. So we used to, in the team matches, we used to play singles and then the mixed. Yeah. So I think we were probably up to say kind of 20 in the world level. And then after 20, it becomes very specialist. Yeah. As singles players, we could kind of get away up to that level.
Can I ask you, in England, where did you go to play? Because I've heard a few people of the time go to Wimbledon to play. Did you? I mean, nowadays there's Milton Keynes where everybody the best goes to. Where would you go now? Where would you have went then? Did you go to?
Yeah, look, sometimes I went to Milton Keynes. Did you? So they'd be kind of organised British singles training.
I guess these are the same time as Lyndon Williams, I suppose, isn't it? Because he talked about going into London, North London and stuff.
Yeah, a bit older, probably like a generation after. So yeah, Lyndon would have gone to London, and then kind of the London training kind of moved to Milton Keynes, really. And I used to train at Bath Uni. So it was Peter Bush, who was a good coach, was based there. And there was a few good players around there, like Robert Knock and Paul Hinder, who again were older than me, but good. And Peter was good, and it's like an hour's drive from me. So that's probably where I
And
trained
how
the
did you
most.
get in? Sorry, I've gone on now because it's been ages. How did you get into coaching? How did you get into? How is it like being coached? Who latterly, who were you coached by? When you were 17, 18, who was your coach then? And then when you went to London, this Peter Bushnell, he just took over from somebody else.
Mm.
Was that?
Yeah, look, I probably worked with multiple coaches. I've always worked with
Have
multiple
you?
coaches at
It's
once.
interesting.
Mm. So, look, when I was, say, 15, 8 to 18, I was coached by Lyndon Williams a little bit, Chris Rees, who was another top Welsh player. But the main coach probably, so I worked with Lyndon and Chris a lot, but Lee J. Bock was the British coach at that time. So I used to work with Lee weekly in Milton Keynes as well. So I used to drive up to Milton Keynes and come back. So like he was a really good, shall we say, technical court coach in terms of kind of creating a player at that world level. And then I was able to get good training back home with Chris and Lyndon and some of the senior players. So and then from there, Lee went back to Korea. So then I tried kind of mainly trained with Chris and Peter Bush. So they were the main.
Come back. We're going to come back to that subject. So I want to talk more about that later on because we've covered enough and I've spent enough of your time already. It's an amazing hour and 10 minutes, but I could talk for ages more. So I'd like to go into round two if we could, if
Yeah,
possible,
yeah,
if that'd be okay. Yeah, we'll organise it. Okay. Thank you very much
yeah.
on this. Well, it's Saturday morning here. It's still only it's 11:35, and we've been on for an hour and 10 minutes, and I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for your time. Right. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Cheers. Speak soon.